2003. Matthew Perry was spiraling out of control when he made a desperate late-night call to his therapist. Dr. Chen knew she should follow protocol, call emergency services, and maintain distance. Instead, she grabbed her keys and drove across LA in the middle of the night. The next 3 hours would save his life and change hers forever. It was 2:17 a.m. on September 14, 2003, when Dr. Sarah Chen's phone rang in her Beverly Hills apartment, jolting her from the first peaceful sleep she'd had in weeks. As a licensed clinical psychologist with 15 years of experience treating high-profile clients in Los Angeles, she was accustomed to emergency calls, but something about the timing and the desperate quality of the ring made her stomach tighten with dread before she even reached for the receiver. The voice on the other end was barely recognizable as Matthew Perry, her patient of 8 months who had been struggling with prescription drug addiction while trying to maintain his role on Friends. His speech was slurred, his words punctuated by sobs, and the desperation in his voice was unlike anything she had heard from him during their previous sessions. "Dr. Chen," Matthew whispered, his voice broken and defeated. I can't do this anymore. I've taken everything in the house. I just wanted to say, thank you for trying. You're a good person. You deserved a better patient than me." Sarah's blood ran cold as she recognized the unmistakable signs of a suicide attempt in progress. In her 15 years of practice, she had received similar calls before, and she knew exactly what protocol dictated. Remain calm, keep the patient talking, call 911 from another phone, and maintain professional boundaries while emergency services responded to the situation. "Matthew, I need you to stay with me," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Tell me exactly what you've taken and when you took it." "Does it matter?" Matthew replied, his words becoming increasingly slurred. "I've been thinking about this for weeks, months maybe. Everyone would be better off. The show would be better off. You could help someone who actually wants to get better." As Matthew continued talking, Sarah quickly calculated the logistics. She could call 911, and paramedics would be dispatched to his Malibu home. But given his celebrity status, there was a significant risk that news of the suicide attempt would leak to the press, potentially destroying what remained of his career and making his recovery even more difficult. More importantly, she knew Matthew well enough to understand that the shame and public exposure of a failed suicide attempt might drive him to try again. "Matthew, I want you to listen to me very carefully," she said, making a decision that would violate every ethical guideline she had ever learned, but felt absolutely necessary. "I'm coming to get you. Right now. I need you to unlock your front door and then go sit on your couch. Don't take anything else, don't do anything else, just sit there and wait for me." "You can't. You shouldn't," Matthew protested weakly. "It's too far. It's too dangerous. I'm not worth it." "You are worth it," Sarah said firmly, already pulling on clothes with one hand while keeping the phone pressed to her ear. "And I'm already in my car. 20 minutes, Matthew. Just hold on for 20 minutes. What Dr. Sarah Chen did next violated every principle of professional therapy she had been taught. She was supposed to maintain clear boundaries between her personal and professional life. She was supposed to call emergency services rather than responding to crises herself. She was supposed to protect her license and her practice above all else. Instead, she drove through the empty streets of Los Angeles at 2:30 in the morning, breaking speed limits and running red lights, because she understood that sometimes saving a life required breaking the rules. The drive from Beverly Hills to Malibu normally took 45 minutes, but Sarah made it in 28, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she spoke continuously to Matthew on her hands-free phone, keeping him conscious and responsive through sheer force of will and professional training. When she arrived at Matthew's beach house, she found the front door unlocked as requested. The house was eerily quiet, lit only by the blue glow from a television that had been left on. Matthew was sitting on his living room couch in his pajamas, looking smaller and more fragile than she had ever seen him during their office sessions. Empty pill bottles were scattered across the coffee table, at least 6 different prescription containers that had clearly been emptied in the past hour. Sarah quickly inventoried what she could see: Vicodin, OxyContin, Xanax, Ambien, and several other medications whose names she recognized from Matthew's previous admissions about his prescription drug abuse. "How much, Matthew?" she asked gently, sitting down beside him and taking his pulse, which was weak but steady. "How much did you take?" "Everything," he replied, his eyes barely focusing on her. "I saved them up for weeks. Thought about it every day. Finally got the courage." Sarah's mind raced through her options. She could still call 911, but Matthew would need immediate medical attention regardless of what route she chose. The question was whether she could get him to a hospital discreetly, without triggering the media circus that would inevitably surround a Matthew Perry suicide attempt. "I'm going to drive you to Cedars-Sinai," she told him, helping him to his feet. "We're going to go through the private entrance, and I'm going to stay with you every step of the way." "Why?" Matthew asked, leaning heavily on her as they made their way to her car. "Why are you doing this? You could lose your license, your practice, everything." "Because," Sarah said simply, "sometimes the rules don't account for what people actually need." The drive to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center took another 25 minutes, during which Sarah monitored Matthew's breathing and level of consciousness, while using her professional connections to arrange for a discreet admission through the hospital's VIP entrance. Her former colleague, Dr. Michael Rodriguez, was working the night shift in the emergency department and agreed to handle Matthew's case personally. The next 6 hours were a blur of medical procedures, stomach pumping, IV fluids, and careful monitoring as Matthew's system slowly cleared the massive cocktail of drugs he had consumed. Throughout the entire process, Sarah remained by his side, holding his hand during the worst moments and advocating for his privacy with the medical staff. It wasn't until 9 a.m., when Matthew was stable and conscious, that the full weight of what she had done began to hit her. She had violated client boundaries, failed to follow mandatory reporting procedures, and potentially exposed herself to malpractice lawsuits and licensing board sanctions. Any one of these violations could end her career. "Dr. Chen," Matthew said weakly from his hospital bed, "I don't understand why you risked everything for me. I'm just another addict who can't get his shit together." Sarah looked at this man who had been carrying the weight of entertaining millions of people while battling his own demons, and she realized that everything she had learned about professional boundaries had been missing something crucial: the recognition that healing sometimes requires someone to care enough to break the rules. "Matthew," she said, "I've been treating addiction for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of people struggle, but I've never seen someone fight as hard as you have while facing the kind of pressure you're under. You're not just another addict, you're a human being who deserves to live, and sometimes that means someone has to choose your life over protocol." Over the following weeks, Sarah faced the consequences of her decision. The California Board of Psychology launched an investigation into her conduct. Several colleagues questioned her judgment and suggested that her actions had been unprofessional and potentially dangerous. Her malpractice insurance company threatened to drop her coverage. But something unexpected happened during this period. Matthew's recovery began to accelerate in ways that surprised everyone, including Sarah herself. The knowledge that someone had literally risked their career to save his life became a turning point in his understanding of his own worth and the possibility of genuine recovery. For the first time in years, Matthew told her during a session 6 weeks later, "I felt like maybe I was worth saving. Not because I'm famous, not because I make people laugh, but because I'm human. You showed me that by risking everything for my humanity." The licensing board ultimately decided not to revoke Sarah's license, but they issued a formal reprimand and required her to undergo additional ethics training. Some of her colleagues continued to view her actions as a dangerous precedent that could encourage other therapists to violate professional boundaries. But Sarah had learned something that no ethics course could teach: that the most important therapeutic intervention she had ever made had been the one that broke all the rules. By choosing Matthew's immediate needs over professional protocol, she had given him something that years of traditional therapy hadn't provided: proof that he was worth extraordinary effort. Matthew Perry remained sober for the next 18 months, the longest period of sustained recovery he had achieved since his addiction began. When he did eventually relapse in 2005, he called Sarah first, not to report another crisis, but to ask for help getting back into treatment. "I know what it's like to have someone believe in me enough to risk everything," he told her. "I can't let that go to waste." Dr. Sarah Chen continued practicing therapy in Los Angeles, but her approach to crisis intervention was forever changed by that night in September 2003. She became an advocate for more flexible emergency protocols that prioritized patient welfare over institutional liability, and she trained other therapists to trust their instincts when traditional approaches weren't sufficient. "The most important lesson I learned," she would later write in her professional journal, "is that healing isn't always neat, and it doesn't always follow the rules we've created to protect ourselves. Sometimes the most therapeutic thing you can do is show up when protocol says you should stay away." Matthew Perry never forgot the night that Dr. Chen chose his life over her license. In interviews about his recovery, he would often reference, "a therapist who taught me that I was worth extraordinary effort," without revealing her name or the specific details of what she had done. But those who knew the story understood its deeper significance: that sometimes the most profound healing occurs not in therapy offices or treatment centers, but in moments when someone chooses love over law, humanity over protocol, and presence over protection. The story of Dr. Sarah Chen and Matthew Perry isn't just about a therapist who broke the rules. It's about what it means to truly care for another human being, and the recognition that sometimes saving a life requires risking everything you've worked to build.